Now let's get to section 2. So what is gender language? 아직 10분 남았어요.
네. 일단 우리 식당이나 그런 거.
네. 네. All right. So So section 2. Let's explore the idea of gendered language. So lots of languages have grammatical gender, like meaning every noun gets assigned gender, right? Often masculine or feminine. And these genders differ across languages, right? And this scholar named Laura Brodisky demonstrates from her research that the gender of the noun can shape the perception of things. So, for example, like take the word bridge, right? 다리, bridge. So that's a feminine word in German and masculine word in Spanish, right? So as it turns out, like German speakers are more likely to say bridge as beautiful or elegant or stereotypically feminine like words, right? Whereas Spanish speakers will be more likely to say bridges are strong or sturdy or are stereotypically masculine words, right? So gendered language also happens when we assign words meanings in a gendered way, even when the gender, even when like language has the like grammatical gender, right? So in English, right, what we're studying in the school, the English is, take English for example. Even though like English does not have gendered nouns, English speakers often use language in a gendered way. So we tend to use words like as stereotypically feminine or masculine. So I'm gonna show you two lists, right? And I'm gonna show you which list is more stereotypically feminine, list A or list B. So there's list A over here and list B over there, right? So the communal part is list A, and on the right is the list B. So if you look at the communal part, which is list A, you can kind of see that it's more supportive, it's more team-oriented and friendly, right? And over on the right, the list B is more driven, team leader, and intellectual, right? So most people assign list A to feminine and list B to masculine, right? So as a result, we tend to use different words to describe people we perceive to be female and those we perceive to be male. And thus, we tend to use language in a gendered way. And we are more likely to call it person we perceive to be a woman supportive. And we are more likely to call a person we perceive to be man driven, right? So this can be despite the way they are actually behaving. So this doesn't mean that the people who identify as women are and should be feminine, nor does it mean that people who identify as men are and should be masculine, right? And these patterns reflect stereotypes that are embedded in our views and or even our use of language, right? In Korean, for example. So these gendered word choices can have consequences in different contexts, and we'll explore this in the next section of the presentation. So back to the list, I call the list A in the left side language of we or communal, and the list B the language of the I or agency driven, which means that having an agency or a focus on individualistic and independent traits. So the stereotype of women overlaps with communal language, and the stereotype of men overlaps with like this agency independent like meanings, right? Oh, whoa. Okay. There's a slide missing, but I was gonna say this stereotype. So stereotype, I think in Korean it's called 편견, right? Right. Okay. So it's like all over the world, right? Even in the U.S. This widely held, simplified, essential belief about a specific group, right? Black people might do this, or Asian people might be smart, or men are tend to be strong, women tend to be very, like gentle, like those are stereotypes, right? Not everybody could fit in that category, right? And groups are often stereotyped on the basis of sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, nationality, age, socioeconomic status, disability, language, and so forth, right? Stereotypes are deeply embedded within social institutions and wider culture, right? So using gendered language, even unconsciously, can lead folks feeling left out, 소외당하다, left out, who do not conform to the stereotypical definition or whose expression we perceive does not match stereotypical expectation. And it can create a real harm for these folks, right? So thus, feminine and masculine stereotypes embedded in our word choices can have negative consequences when words are not chosen thoughtfully, right? So when someone we perceive to be a woman act outside of the stereotypical ways, we can in turn act negatively towards them, even if we don't realize we're doing this. This is called the likability penalty, right? So this is actually a good word to remember. So if we expect a woman to be supportive when she acts assertively, for example, we can penalize that person and call her like shrill or having sharp elbows or whatever, right? It's not necessarily that the behavior of acting assertive is negative. Often when a man behaves assertively, like he is more likely to be called authoritative than shrill, right? So on the flip side, if you expect the man to be driven and he's not, we may call him weak person, a weak man. We may believe we are using words like shrill or weak as justifiable critiques of their behaviors, right? But in many cases, our words are actually penalizing folks for not adhering to stereotypical expectations. Language is powerful in that regard, right? So words can shape our perception and expectation, right? Our perception tends to see folks as feminine or masculine, or when folks do not match our expectations, we tend to describe them with penalizing words such as like weak, strong, or high maintenance. But here's a takeaway. Make note to reconsider your criticism and be more inclusive of the behaviors that do not match or conform to stereotypical expectations, right? Okay.